Howdy everybody, John Coffee here to do a video by myself. First time in a long time. Sitting here watching the Devils Hurricane game. Hockey rules, everybody. I'm getting off there, I don't know what I'm doing. This is going to be a video response to Music Mind 24/7. Jason. Top 10 horror films. He picked out his top 10 horror films and they were awesome. And he posted the challenge for people to do video responses to their top 10, and Jesus, it was hard. And in fact, I was sitting here and look at this list, I don't know if this is my definitive top 10 list. I picked out 10 films I love, and then I was sitting there looking at my collection like, I'm leaving out a lot of good stuff. So, I'm locking these picks in. These are my top 10 horror films, which is tough to do. So let's get this started. Top 10 horror films. Coming in at number 10. This is the tough one right here, because not everybody's going to consider this a horror film. And is it a horror film? It's tough. It's got horrifying things in it. But I wanted to put this on the list because it's Takashi Miike. And Takashi Miike is my favorite director of all time. So I had to put a film of his on here, and this is one of my favorite horror film things that he's done. Like I said, that's in the air. Some people are going to consider it a horror film, some people ain't. And that's Gozu. Bizarre film. Of course, everything Miike does is bizarre. And it ain't my favorite Miike film, but this is my favorite, closer to horror. Like I said, that's up in the air. Some people will consider it horror, some people ain't. It's just so bizarre. Then number 9. I'm in a weird mood tonight, people, I'm sorry. Return of the Living Dead. One of my favorite zombie films ever made. It's one of the few zombie films that I've watched so much that I can pretty much, as the movie's playing, recite every bit of dialogue that happens in this movie. One of the first zombie films I ever watched, too, that wasn't a Romero zombie film. I caught it on HBO back in the day, and it's been a favorite of mine ever since. And Linnea Quigley in this film made me realize I was a man. I'm sorry, people. Speaking of George Romero, coming in at number 8 is another one that some people are going to not consider this a horror film. I do. It's George Romero's Martin. I love this movie so much. It's always a toss-up between this and Dawn of the Dead is my favorite Romero film. And you'll see Dawn of the Dead here in a little while, so I'm not going to get into that right now, but this is a movie that I only saw like a year ago, and quickly has become one of my favorite films of all time. Amplas does such an amazing job in this movie as Martin, and I always love Romero's style of filming, especially when he films in like the gritty parts of Pittsburgh. It's just fantastic. Martin is an amazing movie. If you've never seen it, check it out. Like I said, some people are not going to consider this a horror film. I do. Another one that some people are not going to consider a horror film, but this is one of the first real extreme films I watched. Like I think I've said on here before, the first extreme film I ever watched was Last House on the Left, and this was quickly after that because I always heard so much about it, and that's Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which I absolutely adore this movie. Rooker and Towles does such an amazing job, and who's the director on this? John McNaughton. His way he filmed it, it looks like a documentary, and you know, the infamous what's it? Oh man, home invasion. Yeah, the infamous home invasion scene. Once you see that scene, it's unforgettable. And you know, I've seen things more extreme than this now, but this movie still has such an impact on me. It is it's something that I'll never forget the first time I ever watched it. You know, it's such an amazing movie. It's a classic. You know, and I'm definitely like, if you watch a Jason's honorable mention video, he says it's always between that and Maniac. And I love Maniac. I think Maniac's an amazing movie. Joe Spinell does such an amazing job. For me, it's Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I mean, there's similar films, you know, following the life of a crazed person. But for me, it's Henry because it's just so much more, I don't know, well put together. Like, there's a lot of stuff in Maniac where it's just Joe Spinell being Joe Spinell, but you really get to see Henry and his interaction with people. And it's a fantastic. I could talk about that movie all day, so I'm going to go ahead and put it down. What number was that? 10, 9, 8, 7. 6. a movie that I don't think I need to say anything else about because me and Matt reviewed it and we freaking we went forever on it, and it's Frankenstein. I mean, I have no tattoos as you can see, but I'm planning in the near future to be getting a Frankenstein tattoo because this movie means so much to me. I adore this movie so much, and I'm not a fan of the older films. Like I do like most of the Universal monster stuff, but of movies of like the 30s and stuff like that, I'm not a huge fan. But this movie's always had such a big impact with me ever since I was a little kid, and I have a portrait of Frankenstein hanging on my wall. I wish I could show right now, but it really can't turn. So yeah, Frankenstein. I mean, me and Matt went nearly 15 minutes talking about Jack Pierce. I mean, his makeup is so amazing. It's never been topped, in my opinion. There's never been another reincarnation of Frankenstein that looks as good as Jack Pierce's. Bottom line. I'm losing count here. That's 6. Number 5. I remember the first time I heard about this movie. My brother-in-law, who there was always this weird like sequence. Like my brother-in-law got my sister into horror. My sister got me into horror. And my brother-in-law that actually married my other sister, the same brother-in-law that got my sister in horror, married one of my other sisters who isn't a horror fan. Real confusing, but it's basically because my brother-in-law and my youngest sister are the reason I'm a horror fan today. And this was one of the first movies they ever told me about. And when they were describing it to me, I was like, "This sounds so bizarre. I've got to see it." And once you see it, it's still hard to explain. And that's Phantasm. It's a movie that feels like a dream. Like if you've ever had a nightmare, nightmares don't make sense 90% of the time. At the end of a nightmare, you're like, "What? Okay, I don't hardly remember anything that happened." And that's what this movie is. I mean, the first time I watched it and it was over, I was like, "What happened?" So crazy. Angus Scrimm is amazing. I love the cast in this film. Like, oddly enough, my favorite scene in this movie has nothing to do with horror. It's the scene where Reggie and what's his name? Because his real name is Bill Thornberry. That's not his name in the movie. And of course, it doesn't have it on here, does it? No, I can't remember his name at the time, which is terrible because I'm putting on my top horror film list. But Reggie and him are playing guitar. They're playing that I'll be sitting here at midnight. That I like playing music. I don't call myself a musician, but I love to play music. That scene is amazing. I love it so much. The characters feel like friends in this movie, and that's the most important part of this film to me. Such a great film. Number 5, Phantasm. We're hitting the nitty gritty now, folks. There's just 4 films left. I think I just spoiled what number 1 was. Oh well. Now this really should be number 1, to be honest with you. But my number 4, like I said, this should be number 1, but it's not my favorite film, but it has the most sentimental value to me, because I think when we reviewed this, I said it was the first horror film I ever was able to sit through. Now, as a kid, I tried to watch the episode Tales from the Crypt. As soon as the Crypt Keeper popped out of the thing, I freaked out and ran out of the room. I tried to watch Pumpkinhead. When the guy was running door to door, beating on the doors, I freaked out and ran out of the room. But for some reason, I was able to sit through this movie all the way through. And this is the reason I'm a horror fan today, and that's George Romero's Creepshow. Again, it's another reason we don't even need to talk about, because me and Matt talked forever about this movie last month. I adore this movie so much. And I'm a huge anthology fan because of this. I love that format. I think it's an underused format that should be brought back. Yeah, George Romero's Creepshow, number 4. Classic. We're hitting it now, folks. Number 3. Gotta take a breath for this one. Another one that could easily be number 1 for me. What makes this movie the coolest for me, not just the fact that it's amazing, is the fact that it's kind of local folklore around here. I live literally 15 minutes one direction and about 30 to 40 from another direction where this movie was filmed. I can go across the bridge and go to the area where the cabin was. It's not there anymore, so if anyone wants to come to Morristown, Tennessee to find the cabin this movie's in, don't do it. It's gone. And in Tazewell, there's a road, and that's the road that was used in this movie at the very beginning of the film. And that film is Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. Like, this is a movie that I grew up. A lot of people are like, "Did you know that movie was made here? It was made here." And I'm like, "Are you kidding?" And it freaked me out because I was like, "This movie's real." I was a little kid, It's a classic. It has yet to lose its potency. I remember it was me, Matthew, and Marcus about 2 Halloweens ago. They're like, let's watch Evil Dead, let's watch Evil Dead. And I was like, alright, fine, fine. Freaked them out. They were like, oh my god. Yeah. It never loses its power. It's funny, it's gory, it's scary, it's relentless. Fantastic. And I have the honor to have my hometown here. Where is it at? Outside of Morristown, Tennessee. I go to college in Morristown, Tennessee. Dose. How I love this movie. And it's another George Romero flick. George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, which mine's signed by David M. McGee and Scott Reiniger. As a kid, my Blockbuster actually had the 3 Dead films, and I watched them in order, and this was always my favorite. I love all 3 of them, like, especially Day of the Dead. I love Day of the Dead. And Day of the Dead easily could make my list, you know. I could probably replace any of these films with Day of the Dead, but this one was always the one that stuck with me the most. I adore this film so much, and this will be one that you can expect a Matt review of eventually in the near future. So yeah, Dawn of the Dead is number 2. I'm talking really fast, folks. I'm having to catch my breath. Uh-oh. Someone's losing here. Sorry, I got distracted. I'm watching the game. We win. Oh, Devil scored. Number 1. And this was tough, folks, you know. But this was actually, strangely enough, this was the easiest pick for me. As soon as Jason recommended people doing video responses, I walked up my shelf and I picked this one out as number 1, because this is easily my number 1 favorite horror film of all time. This is the film, like I said, Creepshow should be my number 1, but it's not my favorite. It's the most sentimental to me. This is the movie that, as a kid, it freaked me out so much that I literally turned the movie off halfway through and didn't finish it until years later. And that is Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, what more do I need to say about this movie? Oh, all the characters are amazing. It feels so real. It's never lost its power. It only gets better as time goes on. It's just such a fantastic film, and I'm so glad there's an edition like this, 2-disc Ultimate Edition out of this movie. It's the film that, you know, Creepshow made me the fan I am today, a horror fan. But this pushed me into wanting to find more movies like this, you know? It was just, I was obsessed with this movie as a kid. Easily. Obsessed with it. Devil score. I was obsessed with this movie. I was out with my friends recreating scenes from this movie. I mean, it's a film that to the day I die, I will be like, I will die grasping this DVD like, you know, I can talk about this movie all day and I'm not going to. So there's number 1, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So let's do a quick recap. I don't fall in my chair here. I'm stuck. There we go, back. Number 10, Takashi Miike's Gozu. Number 9, Return of the Living Dead. Number 8, George Romero's Martin. 7, Henry. 6, Frankenstein. 7, Phantasm. Wait. 5, Phantasm. 4, Creepshow. 3, Evil Dead. 2, Dawn of the Dead. Number 1, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Well, there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed my top 10. And, you never know. I may do another one down the road. And I got a great idea. Expect another video response from this channel, as I think I'm going to have Matt do his first video by himself with him picking his top 10 favorite horror films. I think that's a good idea. See you guys.